So what all we have discussed so far in transfer pricing, my dear friend? There is a charging section 92. Section 92 say there has to be an associate enterprises. That associate enterprises should enter into an international transaction, and that transaction has to be at arm's length price. Out of this, only associate enterprises we have discussed so far. In this lecture, we are going to discuss what do you mean by international transaction. Definition of international transaction is given in section 92b. It says international transaction means a transaction between two or more associated enterprises. Associated enterprises we have already discussed. If somebody is having control over your management, if somebody is having control in your equity for 26% or more, somebody has given you loan of 51% of more of your total asset, somebody has given you guarantee of 10% or more, somebody is supplying you raw material to the tune of 90% or more, you are completely dependent upon the intangible supplied by the entity, the selling price of your product is influenced by other entity, common control by individuals and relatives. So many things we have discussed so far as associate enterprises are concerned. And either one or both of them are non-resident. Most important thing, if one person is NR and another person is R, then it is a residential, then it is the international transaction. R and NR. If both are NR, that is also international transaction. Sir, if both are NR, then how come it is an international transaction? Obviously, beta, this can become international transaction. You need to refer section 9 subsection 1. Income deemed to be accrued in India. If this NR has set up any project in India, then it will become a international transaction taxable in India. So the transaction can be R with NR, NR with NR, NR with R. Okay. All these possibilities are there. But if transaction is between R to R, obviously you cannot call it an international transaction. So either one or both of them must be a non-resident entity. Transaction in the nature of sale, purchase, lease, tangible property, sale, purchase, lease of intangible property, provision of the services, lending and borrowing of the money, any other transaction having bearing on profit, income, losses, asset of such enterprises, mutual agreements or arrangement between two or more associate enterprises for the allocation or apportionment of any contribution to any cost, expenses incurred for or to be incurred in connection with benefit or services facility provided, meaning thereby any type of transaction. The definition of transaction is so wide that it covers all possible thinkable transaction, my dear friend. Okay, so what is the most important aspect that you learned so far? There has to be involvement of either one non-resident or both of the parties are non-resident. So then there is the concept of deemed international transaction. This is also very important concept, where in respect of the transaction enter into by enterprise with a person other than an associate enterprise. So what people will do, they will not, because associate enterprise is captured by transfer pricing provision now. So A will do the transaction with unrelated party. Please understand, they will always show that these two transactions, these two parties are not related parties, but somebody who is sitting there will control this company indirectly, not directly. It will be controlled indirectly. Look at this. Associate enterprises, there exists a prior agreement in relation to relevant transaction between other person and the associate enterprises. This unrelated person and my associate enterprises, okay, are having some prior agreement. So the transaction is done by my associate enterprises with unrelated party, but this unrelated party and my associated enterprise is having a prior agreement. Prior agreement means before happening this transaction, this is T2, there was a T1. Please understand, where the terms of the relevant transaction are determined in substance between such other person and associate enterprises, and either enterprise or the associate enterprise or both of them are non-resident. Okay, then such a transaction entered into between enterprises and the other person. So enterprise and other person means unrelated person, but this unrelated person is actually working on the command given by my associate enterprise. So they say these two transaction between these two persons are also called as this international transaction, which will be captured by transfer pricing provision. then such a transaction entered into between the enterprise and the other person shall be deemed to be international transaction entered into between two associate enterprise, whether or not such other person is a non-resident. If my A is a non-resident, that's enough. Whether this person is a resident only. So it may happen that transaction is happening between R and R, but if this transaction was influenced by my associate enterprise which is non-resident, so whether this person is a resident or non-resident, that doesn't make any difference if my associate enterprises is a non-resident. Look at one example. This example will put all the clarity. If A Limited, an Indian company, so very important, A Limited is an Indian company. There is a chart on second page. A Limited is an Indian company, has entered into an agreement to sell a product X to Mr. B, an unrelated party. So A Limited will do the transaction with transaction with Mr. B, and they are going to sell product X. So far it doesn't look like a associate enterprise transaction. On 1st June 2020, Mr. B has entered into agreement for sale of product X with CINC, a non-resident entity which is a specified foreign company in relation to A Limited. Okay. On 30th May 2020, so please understand, Mr. B has already agreed to sell this X product to CINC. Obviously CINC is foreign company. Okay, this is a foreign company, that means this is a non-resident entity, and this agreement was done on 30th May. So you can understand, the first agreement was between Mr. B and CINC. The second agreement was between A Limited and Mr. B. What they are doing, they are just, they are just to break the chain of international transaction and related party transaction. They are involving one third party which is unrelated party. Okay. Indirectly, this is a product sold by A Limited to CINC indirectly. Then such a transaction between A Limited and Mr. B shall be deemed to be an international transaction entered into between two associate enterprises, irrespective whether Mr. B is a non-resident. Okay, look at this. A Limited has done the transaction with unrelated party, and unrelated party has done the transaction with associate enterprises. The transaction between these two will be deemed to be international transaction. Here agreement was entered on 1st June and here agreement was entered on 30th May. Transaction between A and B is deemed to be international transaction. Note, CINC is deemed to be associate enterprise of A Limited since it is a specified foreign company in relation to A Limited, which means A Limited holds 26% or more in nominal value of the equity shares capital of CINC. So as I told you, whenever we give any justification or whenever we write any answer on ALP, you have to first justify that these are associate enterprises. Section 92B also give the clarification on international transaction shall include. Because this is inclusive definition, don't waste your time in reading this. It covers all possible transactions. Look at this: purchase, sale and transfer of tangible properties. So what are the tangible properties? Building, transportation vehicle, machinery, equipment, tools, plant, furniture, commodity, any other article or product or thing. Okay, all the tangible assets are covered here. Purchase, sale, lease, use of intangible property, including transfer of the ownership. So what is the definition of use of right or intangible property? Land use, copyright, patent, trademark, license, franchisee, customer lease, marketing channel, brand, commercial secret, know-how, industrial property right, exterior design or practical or new design, any other business or commercial right of a similar nature. You don't have to literally read this. You should know that these are the transactions. Okay. Capital financing, any type of financing, long-term, short-term, lending, guarantee, purchase or sale or marketable securities, any type of advance payment, deferred payments, provision of service, all type of services are covered here. Provision of market research, market development, marketing management, administration, technical service, repair, design, consultation, agency, scientific research, legal, so many things again. Okay. Business restructuring or reorganization entered into by an enterprise with an associate enterprise, all the business restructuring arrangement, amalgamation, transfer of an entity or unit, slum sale, everything, merger, demerger, Intangible assets shall include trademark, trade names, brand name, logos, process, patent, so many things again, my dear friend. Artistic work includes literary work, copyright, musical, maps, so many things. Data processing, some other activities, data processing, engineering, customers, contract, human capital, location, goodwill, methods, programs, technical data, any other thing, attributes. So many things were covered. Don't go and read everything about this. Don't waste your time. Ultimately, what you should remember about section 92B is, sir, either one or both of them should be non-resident. Most important. Along with this, you should know what is the deemed international transaction. So these two things you are supposed to remember. Thank you.